I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Township of Hamilton for June 22nd, 2020. We stand for the flag salute, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This special meeting was called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. Notices of this meeting and live streaming with call-in capability for public comments were published in the Press of Atlantic City and the Star Ledger on June 19th, 2020, as well as faxed to the Atlantic County Record, Press of Atlantic City, Camden Courier, and Newark Star Ledger on June 17th, 2020. In addition, copies of notices were posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and filed in the office of the municipal clerk on the aforementioned date. Notices on the bulletin board have remained continuously posted. Proper notice having been given, the municipal clerk is directed to include this statement in the minutes of this meeting. The minutes of this meeting should also reflect the purpose for which the meeting was called. Mr. Kane?
Here.
Mr. Gishard?
Present.
Mr. Kurtz?
Here.
Mr. Patali?
Here.
Mayor Schenker?
Here. Thank you. We have a resolution to terminate the employment of Officer Donald Bucci. I believe Mr. Bucci's attorney is on the line with us. If you'd have anything you'd like to say.
I do. My client is also dialed in as well. This is good evening or good afternoon, Stuart Alterman of Alterman Associates LLC, representing Officer Donald Bucci, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my client. With that said, excuse me, I think that the council is about to vote again, and I would urge council and Mr. Mayor to not vote as they had voted, as you had voted last week, in favor of terminating my client based upon a decision rendered by the hearing officer, Chief Robert Berry. The decision is a defective decision. It discounts 9 days worth of testimony as offered by Officer Bucci, as offered by the former Deputy Chief of the Hamilton Township Police Department, Deputy Chief, and now Under Sheriff Patuski. It discounts the testimony as offered by Patrolman Bill McElroy. It discounts the testimony as offered by several other Hamilton Township police officers, including but not limited to PVA President Christopher Rizzo, etc. What we really have here is a situation that the town hired a hearing officer who, in my opinion, has rendered many hearing decisions across the state, which by and large are overturned on appeal. And the council and the mayor need to understand that as the probability of this particular decision being overturned. What we have here is a situation where former IA investigator, Lieutenant Sambrone, now Chief, noticed my client, Donald Bucci, of a potential internal affairs matter as a result of a complaint by Sergeant Pritchka. Sergeant Pritchka indicated that Don Bucci wasn't at the Fairways area when he said he was at the Fairways area, but that was proven wrong at the hearing. What we have here is a situation where Sergeant Pritchka testified untruthfully, in my opinion, and he testified in such a fashion as to draw discredit to his continued employment as a police officer, as a police sergeant, and testified in such a fashion that he could not be believable. There's a sergeant in your police department, gentlemen, that apparently does not use the mobile, the MDT, which is the computerized system in the car, in the police car, to utilize the GPS system. Apparently, he doesn't even turn the computer on, and therefore he doesn't have his GPS on. I don't know why. You can speculate, and certainly on appeal in front of either a superior court or an arbitrator, we're going to delve more into that situation. In any event, we provided evidence, competent evidence through video and through restaging the actual allegations as brought by Sergeant Pritchka as to where Don Bucci was on an all-important date of November 20th, 2017. Donald Bucci was parked by the golf house. He left the patrol car there, and he walked to the fairways area, which is something that he had done several times in the past. Donald Bucci brought in other testimony by way of an expert witness, a retired Deputy Chief Blaitler, who looked at the internal affairs report as written by then Lieutenant Sambrone and pointed out multiple violations of the New Jersey Department of Public Safety or Law and Public Safety's internal affairs guidelines, otherwise known as the Attorney General guidelines, that are implemented by statute via NJSA 40A141. The internal affairs guidelines, which are really full force and effect of law, as they are implemented by statute and by the Attorney General, provide not just guidelines, but a roadmap on how to investigate and when to investigate and how long an investigation should take as to any sort of alleged issues involving police. Lieutenant Sambrone's investigation was far afield on many different levels, and that's found in Deputy Chief Blaitler's report. I would think that it would be important prior to even think about voting to terminate my client that perhaps Mr. Mayor and members of council should read that particular report, because it absolutely condemns the internal affairs report and the way in which it was proffered in this particular case. Mr. Mayor and members of council, the allegation giving rise to this case occurred on November 20th, 2017. My client, Donald Bucci, wasn't interviewed until a year later, which is unconscionable. So in other words, while the decision says that my client failed to tell the truth on different occasions, what this hearing officer did is that he cherry-picked the most favorable testimony and wrote that down in his decision by way of copying and pasting from the transcript without putting anything in any of the testimony into proper context. So in effect, he wrote a novel, and this novel essentially underscores Lieutenant Sambrone's internal affairs report that is unconscionably violative of the Attorney General guidelines. It is indeed an incompetently written report, and that certainly will be ferreted out on appeal. I'm hoping to avoid the appeal because I think, Mr. Mayor, if you and members of council review my expert's report on behalf of Officer Bucci and independently review the transcript as proffered during 9 days of testimony, I think that reasonable individuals would come to an opinion that certainly Hamilton Township did not meet the burden of proof necessary with which to terminate a 15-year officer. That Donald Bucci did not lie or testify in a less than candid manner. In fact, he testified truthfully. And only an individual that reads the entire transcript, not with the eye of cherry picking in favor of one side. In other words, retired Chief Robert Very, who only retired with 20 years of employment in the midst of litigation in his own police department prior to setting out on teaching departments how to fire people, would only do something so one-sided and so remarkably unfairly in order to write himself a decision recommending the termination. This could be a very costly result by terminating Officer Booth. And I would think that you would want to personally examine and retrace the steps of this particular matter prior to voting to terminate. I don't know whether Mr. Mayor or any member of the council actually read the transcript in this case. I don't know if there was any independent review along with just reading a decision from what I call, and in my opinion, it's nothing but a decision from a bought and paid for prostitute. And certainly the truth will come out. And on appeal, I promise you, if it goes that far, my client will absolutely be exonerated and will be back to work. But the unfortunate part, the cost will be extremely high in getting there. So therefore, I would respectfully request that you do an independent review of the hearing officer's decision prior to voting on my client's removal. Thank you.
Thank you. Does your client like to speak, or are you speaking for him?
I'm speaking for him.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, though, for the opportunity.
We have a resolution on the table to terminate employment with Officer Donald Bucci. Pleasure.
What is the resolution number? I have.
We don't assign it once after you vote.
I'll move the resolution as it is written for the termination of Officer Donald Bucci.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Rodney, John, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr.
Will we
Finn,
have an opportunity to review the transcript?
Pardon me, Rodney?
Will we get the opportunity to review the transcript?
You can if you'd like, yes.
Well, I personally would like to do that.
There is a motion.
There's a motion on the floor, Rodney. You can review it if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Speaking up for my client, I think that the council person would like to review it prior to the vote.
Sir, this is not your time to speak. Thank you.
I vote no until I get a chance to read the transcript, because I know nothing about this.
This is the second time this has been up before the committee, Rodney. I don't know what you mean when you say you don't know anything about it.
Details of the, I don't have the details.
We're at a point now where we have a motion and a second on the floor to follow through with the termination. You can vote no if you'd like. You can always review after if you'd like. I don't. Unless somebody wants to.
I have a question, Mayor.
Go ahead, John.
I just would like to know of the committee members, how many people have had the opportunity to read that transcript?
The transcript is 9 days long.
Yes. It would be an impossibility for us to look at these disciplinary matters like this and read 9 days worth of testimony. I mean, we have to rely on, and I'm relying my decision on the hearing officer's recommendation, and he has a right to appeal, which his attorney has said that he will do so. So there's a motion and a second.
if I may interject on behalf of my client, this is Stuart Alterman.
I'm gonna
I
ask
think
you
that
to
it's incumbent
please-
upon your form of government in order to actually review the transcript and not rely upon a
Cut him
defective
off.
decision
Come on,
written by.
cut him off. I've asked you not to speak. This is not your time to speak. You had your time to speak. We're in the middle of a motion right now. You do understand what that means, correct? Thank you. Rodney, John can still hear us? Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay, so
I
where
can
we're
hear you.
at this moment is we're in the middle of a motion where we must take action one way or another unless somebody wants to pull back the motion. I feel as though that any research into this case, there was plenty of time to do so. You know, we had this up before us a week ago. So I don't know why we should delay it any longer. So I'm going to call for a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kane?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
All right, yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
I'm going to rely on the hearing officer's information, and I'll vote yes.
Mr. Patali?
Yes.
Mayor Schenker?
Yes,
All yes and carried.
thank you. With that, I will open the floor to the public for public comment.
Mr. Mayor, this is Bruce Stride.
Yes? Go ahead, Bruce.
I'm certainly appreciative that the committee saw fit to re-advertise and hear particularly the comment of the officer's attorney. I have no opinion on how I would vote if I were in your shoes. I think Mr. Kurtz and Mr. Gishard certainly brought up interesting point that they have not read the transcripts. I also appreciate the fact that it is very lengthy. But as a resident and taxpayer, I certainly learned a little bit more now that Mr. Alterman has had an opportunity to offer opinion, certainly much more than the public learned with virtually no advertising for this resolution at the previous meeting. So all I can say is I wish or would have appreciated that all members of the Township Committee had taken maybe not the time to read all of it. I don't know how long but just the questions and comments of Mr. Walterman certainly does bring some legitimate questions to what you voted. I know it is a personnel matter and all of those items that transcript is not privileged to the public. I can appreciate that. There are sensitive areas, but I can certainly at the conclusion of how this may not come to a final conclusion for perhaps years to come, because these things take time in the courts appropriately. But I hope that the taxpayer, we have to rely on Township Committee's votes. I hope the Township Committee, their decision to terminate this officer does not cost the taxpayer a lot of money, time, and effort in the future. So, again, thank you for rescheduling and properly advertising this resolution. I think that was the right thing to do. Only time will tell if the vote is correct. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Mr. Stride, let's make one thing clear. That meeting was properly advertised. We're doing this as a courtesy to Officer Bucci and his attorney to try and stop litigation that would cost the township money. So let's be very clear that nothing was done wrong. We're doing this to keep the peace, so to speak. So we're moving forward with the decision. Is there anybody else in the public who'd like to speak?
Well, this is Stuart Alterman. If there's nobody else, I'd like to speak again, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the gentleman who just spoke, who expressed concerns the last time, and obviously expressed very valuable concerns this time. Unfortunately, I don't remember your name, sir, but I wish to thank you on the record. Secondly, I wanted to try to speak before you took the vote, and I would have thought that the public comment section would have taken place before you took your final vote, because I would have thought that the public would have weighed in, or should have weighed in, on council's action prior to taking the vote. But seeing that the vote was taken after, or rather public comment on this particular matter, on the termination of Officer Bucci, came in after the vote was taken, I'm not quite sure what the reason for public comment would be offered at all under the circumstances, and I just wanted to make that noted. I wanted that noted for the record. Thank you.
That's the way every one of our meetings is.
Mr. Mayor, this is Bruce Fry again.
Yes. Go ahead, Bruce.
Mr. Mayor, I think the comment by Mr. Alterman that this is a deviation from normal committee procedure, and I'm talking about early public comment. I think the record would show that since the mid-90s, when I had the honor of serving on Township Committee, I had placed on Township Committee agendas, and it is still in effect, that early public comment would be offered for purposes of the public to make comment on all items that were not being held as a public hearing or an ordinances and such. So this is a deviation from typical Township Committee meetings, where early public comment has always been part of the agenda since the mid-90s, if not a little bit before. Thank you.
Bruce, that's true in our regular meetings. This is a specially called meeting for this purpose and this purpose only. So you are absolutely right that it is our normal procedure to have early public comment during normal township meetings that are on the first and third Monday of every month. This is not one of those. Thank you for your comment. Anyone else in the public like to speak?
Make a motion to close the public comment. Second.
Motion and second to close the public portion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Taking a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it.